sometimes people are trying to make someone else feel more comfortable. So they go on and on and on with a whole background and a story. And the person is kind of freaking out, waiting for the other shoe to drop and saying, just tell me, just tell me, just tell me. So by just saying it up front, gets it out of the way.
Welcome to Leadership and Motivation Unleashed, practical leadership for modern workplaces. A podcast where we explore actionable strategies to help you lead with confidence, build cohesive teams, and create thriving workplace cultures.
We're here for the career-focused professionals climbing the corporate ladder, the managers navigating team dynamics, and the leaders shaping the future of work. In each episode, we'll break down challenges, share practical advice, and leave you with insights you can apply today.
I'm Patrick Law, your co-host, a Gulf War veteran with over 26 years of corporate leadership experience in banking and payments, blending precision and innovation with a tad of passion to solve big challenges.
And I'm Rachel Book, a C-suite trusted advisor and an HR leader with 2 decades of experience at Fortune 50 companies, specializing in building people-first strategies and driving impactful talent solutions.
Together, Rachel and I, we combine operational expertise and transformational leadership to bring you real-world advice on leadership, workplace culture, team dynamics, career growth, and anything else that we may want to delve into.
So, if you're ready to take your career and leadership skills to the next level, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It is a Wednesday here in Dallas-Fort Worth. Rachel's up in New York. This episode, we're going to talk about difficult discussions and straightforward, open, honest, and transparent dialogue with associates, with bosses, with peers. This is a tough topic because it is one of those things where some people can go to a special place and turn off emotionally and have open and honest dialogue about difficult topics, difficult situations, and some people really kind of curl up in a ball over it, and they don't always go well, and everything in between. And if I were to, before Rachel jumps in, if I were to rank difficult leadership things to face, I would put this in the top 3 for people in my experiences, and I'll add some things later. But Rachel, how do you want to start off this dialogue?
Oh, this is a juicy one. And it is so, so, so hard. The good news about this, which is also not such good news, because nobody ever asks for this, is it gets easier with more experience. So the more difficult conversations you have, the better you get at them. Now, again, that is not experience people wish for, because we never want to have the difficult conversations. And some of them are really hard. It could be about personal performance. It could be about personal life circumstances. It could be about tough business decisions. It could be a variety of different things. So it does get easier, and you can get better at this with time, both from the perspective of leading the difficult conversation, initiating it, delivering the bad news, or being the recipient or the responder to a difficult conversation. Now, I always like to approach it from both perspectives. So I think if you are a leader or a parent or an educator or whoever, a community leader, and you are having to deliver some difficult news to someone, right? Maybe they're losing their job. Maybe you're cutting their salary. Maybe the company is going through some hardships. Maybe you have to tell them that even though they think that they are awesome and a gift to humanity, that they're actually really terrible at their job, or they made some big mistakes that have serious consequences, or some of their personality characteristics are abrasive to other people, or there's been feedback that their body odor is disrupting the work environment, and you have to explain to them that it would be a good idea for them to use some deodorant. I mean, these are real kinds of situations that managers have to have with employees sometimes. It could be really hard. It could be really hard. So if you have to deliver that news, what are some ways that you can prepare yourself? And also, what are some ways that you can optimize the situation to make it easier for the person to receive that news? And so there are some things you can do, right? The first thing is make sure you're in the right mindset. Make sure you're not delivering the bad news or having a difficult conversation in 3 minutes between 2 other conference calls. Carve out some time. Make sure you're in the right frame of mind. You're not multitasking. Prepare what you're going to say. So you can write out your bullet points. You can write a script, however your personal style works best. But know in advance what you're going to say, because sometimes when you're having a difficult conversation, it's natural to freeze or to forget what you're going to say or to go on a tangent. And that can derail the whole thing and make it a lot worse. So being just crystal clear, keeping it very simple and straightforward. I think in my experience, people never like getting bad news or hearing these difficult things, but they respect and they appreciate when you kind of tell it to them straight. And so even starting saying, hey, the person dials into the Zoom or they come into your office and say, hey, I have some tough news to tell you, or, we're about to have a difficult conversation. Like even just saying that. So they're going to sort of tense up and if it's not terrible news, you could say, okay, relax. It's not the end of the world. But just letting them know, like, hey, we're about to have a difficult conversation can really put people in the right mindset. And then to say what it is up front, right? So if you're telling someone that their job is being eliminated, say, hey, I have some difficult news to share. We're making some changes in the company, and unfortunately, your job is affected, right? So you're saying it up front. So they're not waiting for the other shoe to drop. Sometimes people are trying to make someone else feel more comfortable. So they go on and on and on with a whole background and a story. And the person is kind of freaking out, waiting for the other shoe to drop and say, just tell me, just tell me, just tell me. So by just saying it up front, gets it out of the way. And then what you do is you say a little bit more and then you pause, right? Ask them if they have any questions or reactions. Acknowledge that, wow, I know this is hard, or I know that this is a surprise, or I know this must be difficult to hear. It's okay. I know you're going to need some time to process this, and you may not have questions or reactions now, and that's fine. Let's touch base later in the day or tomorrow. So letting people have the space, because different people process difficult things in different ways. Some people get really defensive. Some people get angry. Some people cry, right? And as the leader delivering this news or leading this conversation, you have to get used to that. And so you may need to leave that space for whoever that person reacts and not get derailed. And again, if they're having a really hard time, you could say, listen, it's okay if you need to take some time. We can pick this up later. So really optimizing the flow of the conversation so that you can respect the other person is so important, because you may not be able to change the nature of what that conversation is. You may still have to deliver the difficult news. You may still have to criticize that person. You may still have to give them feedback, but at least you're doing it in a way that is sensitive, but also with directness and with transparency. And that applies whether you're telling someone that their job is going away or you're telling someone that their performance is not meeting expectations. So I think, again, leaders can do this in a lot of different ways. There's some good books like Crucial Conversations, which is a famous one about this. But for leaders, that's what they should do. And if you're an employee and you're having a difficult conversation or someone initiates a conversation with you and you feel uncomfortable, it may be okay to say, hey, I really want to talk about this, but I'm not in the right frame of mind. I have a meeting in 5 minutes and I want to give you the respect of having this conversation. Is it okay if we can do this another time? So you can say that. Or if you don't know how to react and you feel like something was like thrown in your face, it's okay to say, wow, thank you so much for sharing this with me. I'd like to take some time to reflect. Is it okay if we touch base a little later or tomorrow? So telling them what you need in terms of how you're processing this information and what kind of questions you might have. Because all of us have been in situations where we've been in an argument or a difficult conversation and we say what we say, and then we hang up the phone and we're like, oh, I wish I would have said that. Why didn't I say this when they said that? And it's okay that it's not in the moment, right? It's okay to continue it another time when maybe both of you are more level-headed, and try as much as possible to remove the emotion, especially if it's a business decision or if a business situation, right? If somebody is saying, hey, your performance isn't meeting expectations, or your behavior in yesterday's meeting really caused some concern with other employees, they're not saying you're a bad person. They're not saying they don't like you, right? They're saying that something happened and there was an incident or there was a behavior. And so try and separate your actions and your behaviors from who you are as a person. And sometimes that helps you approach it with a little bit more of a critical eye, and it becomes less of an emotional onslaught.
That's all quality stuff. I'll come at it from the side. You took it like right on the nose. I'm going to come at it through the ear hole.
Heavy.
And that is like, let's dip our toe into the whole review thing for a minute, because it's related in a way. I learned early on that the annual review process is kind of a joke, because if you don't have the right leadership in the right seats, who's been having quality, transparent dialogue the whole year, the employee could be shocked by what they see at the end of the year when you could have all along been making small course corrections for that person, small dip of your toe into the open and honest feedback category of engagement. So there is no surprise at the end of the year, to the point where I don't like annual reviews. And Rachel knows this. Like, I do them because we're supposed to do them, right? But they shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Like, they shouldn't even have to be read, actually. Like, every one-on-one I have, I address something. Every one. Every discussion I have with somebody, I address something. Now, I'm not a Debbie Downer, and I'm not a bucket of cold water every dialogue. Leaders can't just be on that side of the dialogue all the time. There's positives too. Every dialogue I have, we're addressing positives and a few negatives. In the last recording, we talked about Marcus's trombone player wanted, and he gets into the dialogue around, it's okay to, parents, I'll just say it. You get a report card, 3 A's and a D. Most parents focus on the D. They don't focus on the 3 A's. And his whole concept about trombone player wanted and strength finders, for those of you out there who have ever done, I love strength finders, is leaders should pour more in to what you're good at. And he gives this story about he's really bad at this topic. He's really bad at, direct contact in terms of hard conversations. And his bosses would send him to schools or training about if their voice goes high, yours goes low, like all those things. And he's like, I went from being really bad to bad. He actually says that, like all the trainings he had and people trying to help him didn't. Instead of focusing on his strengths, everyone focused on the weaknesses. And so many leaders in reviews just pick on the thing they're not good at and ignore all the good they do. We can't change the world with this podcast or my words, but if you're listening to this and you're in a position where maybe you don't receive that kind of treatment because you work for someone who's completely unaware of themselves and only knows how to talk about the bad or pick on the bad. I've had a few of those, right? That doesn't mean you have to treat your people that way. And it's okay as the year stretches on or things are going on, that you slightly address, maybe spend 20 to 30% of your minutes on the things they're struggling with, but really focus on the things they're good at. And it's your responsibility to give them more of what they're good at. Don't try to make someone better at something that maybe they're not capable of being better at. And not everyone's all bad. Like, there's good happening in everyone. And if the organization allows you and you have the temperament and you have the wherewithal and the courage to pour into the good, do that. And then back to our topic here for a minute, the exact topic. If you take off bite-sized chunks on weekly one-on-ones, monthly engagements, in-person dialogues, unofficial moments with staff, coworkers, bosses, because you got to do this up too. Stand up for yourself, up. You matter. Bosses aren't kings. They don't get to say everything and do everything they want. You have a choice. But as it relates to in your environment that you're responsible for, take off bite-sized chunks of it. Work towards it. If you're more comfortable talking about it for 5 minutes at a time in a 30-minute meeting, an hour-long meeting, and then pivoting to the good they're doing, you'll eventually ramp up to really getting to the full picture. I'm not saying soft toe. I'm not saying meander your way in it. Hit everything head on, but don't hover on it for so long that you make yourself and the other person uncomfortable. Just mention it. Say, hey, I've noticed this. What is your feedback on this behavior that is showing? How can I help you with that? Turn it back on them. People like to feel like they're empowered and in control, not just for what their job is, but for their own behaviors. If you can have that time and you can turn it into a professional relationship discussing 70% strengths, 30% strengths that need attention, don't call them negatives. Don't say you're bad. You can really make a bond with another person where they would appreciate that more. Now, does it always end up with you've addressed everything and everything's great again? No. And that's another dialogue. Like, maybe they need to change. They need to change for themselves. The company needs to change them. You're not fully aware of everything that's happening. They'll never get fully aware. That's another discussion. That's why having partners like Rachel to dialogue as a business leader through how to properly address those kind of changes. Is it another job in the company? Is it a different type of role? Is it, we tried this, it didn't work, and here's the 3 reasons or 10 reasons why it didn't work, but man, we really think you'd be a good fit here. That's a version of a hard conversation. But find partners in the organization that can help you through that. They can't do it for you, but they can give you some ideas for you to dialogue on and to execute against. My last comment on this is, I've never appreciated people that sound like they're reading from a script. Part of you should be in that discussion. Don't be a robot. Like, the other person would probably appreciate the hard dialogue more if they could feel that you're a little more understanding about what's happening than just dun, 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 dun. Like, have a way to communicate that is authentic. People who are authentic, even in really difficult discussions, are appreciated. Not that you're going after appreciation, but what I mean by that is the other person, even if they can't in the moment appreciate it because they're embarrassed or upset or angry or whatever, in hindsight, most of the time, they'll say, that was actually handled pretty well. Now, I've actually had people call me months and years later and thank me for how I handled it. But I've also had some people say, man, you really did that bad. And like Rachel said, it's a lousy thing to get practice at, but the longer you're in leadership, the more it's going to happen. And the better you're going to get at it. It may not feel better to you, but you'll get better at the act of being open and honest with people. And like Rachel said, that's all people want. Just be honest. So that's my commentary.
We pick our topics based on what we imagine is on the minds of many, but we are not mind readers. So please use our form, which we'll link for you in the show notes, to suggest additional topics we should consider, request to be a guest on our show, or give us constructive criticism, which will make our podcast more valuable for many. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
And what you said about sprinkling in the difficult parts of the conversations over time is so brilliant for a few reasons. One, because you're less likely to shock and overwhelm people. And you're not waiting. Like sometimes, you know how something bothers you, like your spouse puts their socks on the floor or somebody doesn't take out the trash. And like every time you see it, you're like, oh, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. And then finally one day you just explode because you're just so frustrated. So managers can do that too, where they see a behavior or something that is frustrating or annoying or irritating or unhealthy. And they're like, oh, okay, I don't want to say something. Either I'm uncomfortable or he's having a bad day, or maybe it will get better. And then by the time it comes to a head, that difficult conversation isn't going so well because it's already gotten so bad. So sprinkling it over time helps you get it out before you erupt, and also doesn't overwhelm that other person with something that has been going on for so long that maybe they're like, hey, you didn't tell me this was bad until now, so I thought it was totally fine, right? Now all of a sudden I'm hearing that I'm terrible. So that's one thing. The second thing about balancing it with positive feedback, and not in the fake way of that compliment sandwich that people used to tell you to do. Do you remember the compliment sandwich? You start off by saying, wow, you are such a great employee. We're so happy to have you on our team. The way that you do these reports is really not great, and I'd like you to change that. But we really appreciate your communication skills, right? And it's so rehearsed and sounds so fake, and I think people sense that. But balancing it with positive is important for a few reasons. One, because you're just overwhelmingly being encouraging and saying nice things to people, which is really good for them to hear, right? You might think, oh yeah, they know they're smart. They know they're doing a good job, but it's still really good to hear that. But the other part, if you're delivering difficult news or negative feedback or criticism, and that's all that they've only heard from you, they may not even believe it, right? They'll take it with a grain of salt and say, oh, all he ever does is criticize and complain. Nothing's ever good enough for him. And then they almost absolve themselves of the responsibility because they're like, oh, it's his problem. He's too critical. But if they also say, well, actually, I got really good feedback about this, but then this is a criticism on that, then they're like, wow, I'm going to take that as constructive. I really appreciate that. I know you want to make me better. So I think that is so, so smart for those reasons. And I would include those as major takeaways from this conversation. Along with one other thing, when you're optimizing the situation for delivering the news or having the conversation, keep in mind who you're having the conversation with. Keep in mind their personality, some cultural nuances, how they might better receive it, right? Some people, based on their personalities, based on their upbringing, based on their cultural sensitivities, might really prefer privacy when they have a difficult conversation. Some people may not care. Some people might need advance notice to prepare for it, and they might want you to tell them what it's about. And other people might be more comfortable kind of on the fly. But make sure you're in the right mindset and you're showing the right amount of respect and authenticity, because then it could be the worst news ever. But if you have the right bedside manner as a leader, it goes a really long way. And besides for making the person feel good, which is a worthy objective, they're much more likely to receive the feedback or do whatever it is productive with it, which is your ultimate goal all along. So taking the extra time to do it in the right way is so, so important. Any other takeaways from you, Patrick?
Yeah. And this isn't for everybody. And look, I've been mentored and I've had trusted advisors tell me I'm doing this wrong, by the way. Not wrong, but they don't believe in what you're about to hear and they don't see it. And that's okay. Everyone's got a read. But I think hard conversations, if you're just listening and not watching, I'm doing air quotes right now because I've noticed some of these, they can't see us and I don't understand why. But anyway, I'm doing air quotes. If you build rapport with your staff, and here's the air quotes, it's easier. That's why I'm doing air quotes. Nothing's easy, but it's easier to receive if you're the other person, if there's already a level of respect as a person, as a professional, as a coworker. You know, like an example of something easy to do. I've worked with people that love to say, this is my employee, John. This is my employee, Sarah, when they're being introduced. I stopped doing that because I think I did it like the first couple years because I just didn't know any better. And then I got some real self-awareness immersion that we all talked about at Farr and Associates in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So I started saying, this is my coworker, Sarah. I mean, I am technically their boss or their boss's boss's boss or whatever I am in the moment, but I stopped saying this is my employee. It sounds off. I don't own anybody. Corporations don't own you. Your bosses don't own you. You're your own individual. So I look at people I work with as my coworker. Like Rachel's my peer. I say, this is my coworker. This is my fellow associate. And I talk about my subordinates that way too. It does something in their heads when they hear that. I don't pretend to be smarter or better than anybody else. Now, there's times where some people would say, well, Patrick, you can be pretty arrogant. I don't know. I think there's a fine line between arrogance and confidence, but that's for another episode. I like to build rapport with people that I work with. I want them to know who I am. It's okay that they know my areas of struggle, that I have holes in me that you could drive a truck through some days. Like, I'm not perfectly well-rounded. I'm edgy and not always straight. But I think that's why people fit well together, because none of us are perfectly well aligned. And if you can build a team on rapport and a mutual respect for what we're good at and what we're not so good at, that opens a door, even slightly, to what for a lot of people who don't have rapport to be a hard and difficult conversation. Because are they hard and difficult because you don't know what you're really talking about or the person you're telling the news to? If you don't know who they are and what their gifts are, what their shortcomings are, what their untapped potentials are, what their aspirations are for excellence in their own heart, how can you have a hard and difficult conversation with somebody that you don't know? We never really know each other. We're coworkers. Like, we live in our homes. We never really know who we're working with, but there's parts of that. It's like an iceberg. Like, what is it? 90% below the surface, 10% on top. Get under the surface a little bit. Not everything in corporate America needs to be superficial. You can expose your heart a little bit. Have some confidence in others. So it got easy. I'm doing air quotes again, everybody. It got easier for me the last 15 to 20 years of my career because I really got to know the people that worked with me. So when I had to have a hard discussion, it didn't feel good to them or me. The baseline of common respect for each other, it landed the way it needed to land. So I wanted to close with that. Be bold in your relationship building as a leader or as a subordinate and try to build some foundational respect. So if the hard day comes, the door's already kind of open that they will take the information as you really intended to help them. So that's it.
That's so wise. And even if there is a power dynamic, because yes, you are their boss and you do have a major aspect of control over their career, you can minimize that, right, in regular behaviors, right? So if you're having a conversation with someone, you don't have to sit with a desk in between you, right? You can scoot your chair over so it feels more natural. It goes a long way. Well, wow, I love this discussion. Thank you so much for sharing, Patrick.
Yeah, of course. I love doing these with you, Rachel.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Leadership and Motivation Unleashed. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating and review. It only takes 1 minute and it helps the show grow and reach more leaders like you in search of advice and motivation.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Please remember to share with your friends and family and coworkers, mentors, trusted advisors. This show is for everybody. See you next time.